Hello everybody, welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Dover. A Monday afternoon race at Dover was no snooze fest at all. The racing was actually very good, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what made this race good. We're going to talk about the track conditions. We're going to talk about what this win for Chase Elliott, NASCAR's most popular driver, means going on for the rest of the season with the 9 team. And we're going to talk about a little bit of a frustration between two drivers at the end of this race, Ross Chastain and Martin Truex Jr. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get right on into it. First off, I want to talk a little bit about the racing, because going into Dover, this was one of those tracks where, the last few years, Dover's been not the most entertaining race. It's been kind of a snooze fest at times. Not a lot of passing mid-pack, not a lot of passing for the lead. But today there was a lot of passing all throughout the field for really the entire race, except, the very last run where Chase Elliott kind of pulled away there. But nonetheless, still a lot of passing mid-pack, a whole lot of passing mid-pack actually. So I'm sure that's a product of the next-gen car, a product of the changing track conditions. I mentioned yesterday in my brief little, 2-minute video that I think we'll see some single-car wrecks at the start of the race. Well, hey, I was 100% right. What's new, right? But, yeah, there were some single-car wrecks to start out this race. I figured that was definitely possible with the green racetrack, a slicker racetrack. Obviously the temperatures were, I believe they reached the 70s, so a little bit warmer than usual, especially when the sun came out. So the track gets a little bit slicker on those tires, especially when you're set up for a race car to be run, under cloudy and colder conditions. That can definitely play into that as well. Obviously, we saw some issues with tires that I think needs to be addressed by NASCAR. We might need to even make the penalty stricter. Or worse for these teams, because losing tires can be extremely dangerous at times. That's obviously a point of conversation that needs to be brought up. But overall, a great Dover race. I thought it was fantastic. One of the best Dover races I've seen in a while. I've seen a couple of good Dover races, but you go back to the last 3-4 years, even when they had 2 races a season, Dover really wasn't one that you really looked forward to on the schedule. But it was definitely entertaining today with the concrete surface, the changing track conditions, like I said, and a lot of passing. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about the running order. Let's talk about Chase Elliott. First win of the year for Chase Elliott in the 9 team. This is going to hurt me to say this, because I'm a Kyle Busch fan, so I'm a little salty about the caution coming out at the wrong time for Kyle Busch, but I'm pushed through this, and everything I say for the next couple minutes is really going to hurt when I talk about Chase Elliott, but I'm going to do it anyway. Chase Elliott winning is kind of a big deal for this team. They've been the fastest car, but not the fastest car, but they've been fast all year long, running extremely consistent. They've been first in regular season standings all season long, or for most of the season, the majority of the year, with those consistent finishes. Obviously today, finally getting that win. Got a little lucky there, caught a break for sure with the caution coming out, taking out his teammate Alex Bowman for the win, and Kyle Busch, who was the dominant car of the day, led over 100 laps in this race. In the second half of the race, had to fight his way up there. Once he got to the lead, there was no stopping Kyle Busch unless it was an untimely caution. As soon as Kyle Busch went down pit road, that took Kyle Busch and Alex Bowman out, at least for the win, contention for the win, giving Chase Elliott his first win of the season. Now, Chase Elliott obviously didn't have it handed to him. He had to hold off, Stenhouse, Chastain for a while there at the end of the race. But a good job by Chase Elliott to wheel that car to the win. But I do want to say, when Chase Elliott wins, this tends to be a trend when he wins, especially at an oval. Obviously last year getting the road course wins, one of those rain shortened, and he was not the fastest car in that rain shortened win at Coda. And then of course the last win that he got was 26 races ago at Road America on 4th of July weekend. Chase Elliott can get on a little streak. He's been fast, he's been very consistent, but he hasn't got that win. Now that he's got that win, essentially, this could be like opening the floodgates to many more wins when you talk about the 9 team. Alan Gustafson and all those guys build off of momentum. At least what we see from fans, that tends to be a very common trend, is this team builds off of momentum. They get 1 win, they go win 2 more. They go win 3 more. It's like that. That's kind of how it is. If you go back to when he won the championship, I believe he won 1 race late in the year, won the very next race, and then won the championship. So that's kind of the trend. I believe that championship, I believe he won the final 2 races in 2020 as well. So a team like Chase Elliott in the 9 team builds off of momentum. So it'll be very interesting to see going to Darlington next week, one of his decent racetracks, if that will continue. And we'll have to see. That hurt me to say. I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to say that he's going to be dangerous. But I think Chase Elliott could potentially be the most dangerous driver in the field right now just with that win. So just going to say that. Let's kind of go through the top 15 here. I'm going to talk about the Truex and Ross Chastain situation a little bit later. Let's kind of go through the top 10 here. Chase Elliott, like I said, he got the win. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., a great finish for that 40-17. They've had a lot of bad luck this year, had a lot of things go wrong. Some things that are in their control, some things out of their control, but finally got a good finish. They've been running somewhat decent this season. Ross Chastain, one of those guys I'm going to talk about in a second when it comes to the little frustration we had at the end of the race, gets a third place finish. He was running up front, battling for the lead closer to the end of the race with Chase Elliott, but just I don't think had the fastest race car, wasn't able to hold it off. So Melon Man does not get to smash a watermelon on Monday. Unfortunately, you have to try again next week in Darlington, but a third place finish, not too bad nonetheless for the number one team. Christopher Bell ended up finishing fourth after coming back from a tire failure. I believe he went one lap down, so it's a pretty great recovery. And actually, looking at the results, I didn't know he finished fourth. I didn't even see that. So good job for him to come back. I didn't notice he was up there that high, but great comeback for Christopher Bell. Obviously, Alex Bowman, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack, might have been even a little bit faster than Kyle Busch at times. Definitely a top two car, so it is a shame that he ended up getting fifth when you have a winning race car, essentially, Alex Bowman, but he'll take fifth nonetheless. Not a terrible points day, but certainly when you have a fast car like he had, you want to get wins, so it's frustrating for him, I'm sure. Kyle Larson, running in the sixth position, another one of those drivers that kind of came back from an early spin. Like I said, there were a lot of accidents at the beginning or at the first parts of this race, the Monday portion of the race after the restart. Kyle Larson was a victim of one of those. He lost control, spun, tapped the wall a little bit, and of course had those tires go down. And so a lot of damage on the car for him as well. So sixth place to salvage a top 10, to salvage the sixth place finish is certainly not terrible at all. Kyle Busch. Heartbreak for Kyle Busch. Kyle Busch has won every race that he's raced in on his birthday. That goes back to Richmond a long time ago. I believe it was 2009 or 2008 when he did that. And then, of course, he won last year on his birthday at Kansas. And then with today's race being postponed on his birthday, he is the fastest car all day long. It looked like he was going to get the win. The only driver that could really contend with him and maybe try to steal the win would have been Alex Bowman, like I mentioned earlier. But that didn't work out. And Kyle Busch came down pit road. Somebody's tire flew off. Like I said, that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Somebody's tire flew off at the worst possible time. If the tire had flew off 5 laps later, Kyle Busch would have been fine, probably would have won the race. If it had flew off 1 lap earlier, Kyle Busch would have been fine, probably would have won this race at Dover. So that's very frustrating for Kyle Busch. And like he said, you back into some and you get lucky and win some, and you get unlucky and lose some. And as a fan, it seemed like he lucks out of a lot more than he lucks into. So it's definitely frustrating for me. It hurts me to say that, by the way. I might not sound like it, but it hurts me to talk about this. But Kyle Busch finishing 7th today at Dover. Really disappointing day for that team to not get the win and not even get a top 5. So definitely rough for those guys. Chris Buescher, your pole sitter, fast all weekend. Like I said, qualified first, ended up finishing 8th. Not a terrible run for that 17 crew. Chris Buescher in the 17 Ford. Kevin Harvick got up there to 9th, ended up finishing in the 9th position. Not really a whole lot to say on that one. Eric Jones got all the way up to 10th. He was running really in the top, probably lost a few positions there because he was running in the top for a while there. Almost finished 11th if it wasn't for Truex wrecking out. And then I do want to go and just take a brief look at 11th through 15th, just real quick. Justin Haley in the 31 car, he was running in the top 10 for a lot of this day. A great job by that crew to kind of keep the strategy going well. They stayed up in contention in a car that definitely was not a 11th place race car, probably a below 20s race car if you talk about just speed alone. They did a great job at managing everything to get Justin Haley in the 11th place position. So a great run for that organization, great run for that team. Anytime they finish in the top 20 is good, but 11th is definitely a good run for those guys. Martin Truex Jr. got wrecked on the last lap. He was running... kind of wrecked himself there. Got blocked by Ross Chastain, but he was fighting for 3rd place, ended up finishing 12th. Obviously, there's going to be some frustration with that. And then Chase Briscoe finishing 13th. I didn't even know he was in the race. And then you got Daniel Suarez finishing 14th, that other Trackhouse organization car that was slow. Suarez has been faster at every race this year. I was just bragging on him not that long ago, but today he was out of it. 14th is not where he's been running all season long. He was actually farther back than that. He was in 25th at one point. Was able to come back up to 14th and salvage a decent finish, but obviously the 99 team, they know they can do a little bit better than that. I think they can do a little bit better than that at least, so that's frustrating. But let's talk a little bit about the Ross Chastain, Martin Truex Jr. incident. I want to end it on that, something kind of exciting. We wanted something exciting to finish out this race, especially if you're me, a Chase Elliott hater. So, but we got that. We had a discussion, obviously, after the race between Martin Truex Jr. and Ross Chastain. It looks like to me, I think Chastain, anytime there's controversy, I have to talk about it. But I don't think this is anything that's really going to continue over. I think how Truex feels is Truex is a clean racer. I mean, there's very few guys I can say are just as clean racers as Martin Truex. Kyle Busch is starting to kind of become one. Not to brag on him, but he is kind of becoming one of those nicer guys, one of those cleaner race car drivers. Kyle Larson's obviously a good example of that. Tyler Reddick maybe would even be a decent example of that. But there's no driver really like Truex who's just clean. I mean, Truex is like a to the book. He races the same line every lap, and he's fast. He knows how to do it correctly, and he does that every single lap very consistently. Not a lot of trying to bump into drivers. We see this, with the run-in with Logano a couple years ago at Martinsville, a few other instances where Truex was complaining about how he got knocked out the way. And I kind of see where he's coming from, because Truex is this super clean racer. I mean, extremely clean. But the move Ross Chastain did was not a bad move. Ross Chastain didn't wreck him. He just put a block on him. And was it kind of a late block? Maybe a little bit late, but you have to do that kind of stuff in the Cup Series to salvage a top 3 finish. You don't know how important points can pay when it comes down to it, especially when you're running, for potentially a championship for Ross Chastain. So every position does somewhat matter. It's going to be frustrating for Truex, but I think he'll get over it. I don't think it's anything that will continue. And then, of course, they had the conversation at the end. Truex was obviously very frustrated, which is understanding when you kind of got blocked and it kind of didn't end well for you. You ended up finishing not so great, finishing 12th when you were running third all day. And they battled all day. Chastain and Truex were in the battle all day with each other. So it is disappointing to see Truex obviously finish 12th. But I think Truex will get over it. And maybe they'll go fishing. Ross Chastain in his post-race interview. Ross Chastain's not going to be too upset over it. I don't think it'll continue, like I said. Ross Chastain in his post-race interview, he said, we were just talking about when we're going to go fishing next week. So obviously Ross kind of making a bit of a joke there after the race, which is why he's starting to gain a lot of fans, right? He's entertaining. So certainly interesting to see what happens with that. Like I said, just a racing incident, I think. I think Truex will kind of look at it and say, well, maybe that wasn't as big a deal as I made it out to be. So we'll have to see, of course. Next week, we go to Darlington for the throwback weekend. That should be exciting. That should be interesting. Darlington, pretty decent racetrack. We'll have to see how it runs with the next-gen car. I had some great races there last year. I think the next-gen car at 1.5 miles, like Darlington, should be very entertaining as well. The egg-shaped track, the Lady in Black, should be very entertaining next week. So, of course, that's actually this week. It's later on this week because we're on a Monday afternoon. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Obviously, like and subscribe. There's more coming next week. Like and subscribe if you like the video. And, of course, about this unfortunate loss on Kyle Busch's birthday, let's get rowdy.